Hello, today I'm going to be talking about how to plant a border or container using shade-loving plants so you can still have lots of flowers in the garden even in the shade. It's one of my favourite jobs at the nursery to help people, and it is the most common question asked about shade. And unfortunately, because of the lack of sun, there aren't as many flowers as you would normally see in sunny borders, and that's something you have to learn to work with. But you can still have plenty of flowers. You just need to think carefully about what you're choosing. I will be going through the plants, and I'll put a plant list in the description, and also at the end I'm just going to do a quick summary of the top 3 points to think about when you're planting your border or your container. So let's get planting. The first thing that the lady has requested is an Acer, which is perfect for shade and dapple shade. The only thing that Acer doesn't like is bright sun and wind. And there are some Acers that get really big, they're trees, but there are also these beautiful Acers that are perfect in containers. The only thing you need to remember with an Acer is it needs ericaceous compost. So in this planter we've used multi-purpose either side, but we have put ericaceous in the middle. I've put it quite far forward in the container because the shape of this is hopefully going to be round, and it will get probably about this high and this wide. So I need to bear that in mind. So if I put it at the back, then it would grow flat, so you want to have as much shape as you can. So the next thing I'm going to plant is some box. Now I know these aren't flowery, but I'm thinking about the winter. We need to have something, some kind of shape, and box are beautiful just because you can keep them quite small in a container, and again they do in the shade. If you're an area where you suffer from box blight, you could put yew in as well, and again you can keep them trimmed. You might even want to try some miniature topiary here, but be careful with yew if you have dogs or children, because the little red berries are poisonous. So I'm going to plant these box either side. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to put in is fuchsia, because believe it or not, these beautiful flowers do grow in partial shade. You can put little ones and let them grow, and that is really important to remember when you're planting your border and your containers, is to make sure you leave space for growth. So I'm just going to put these lovely dark fuchsias in now. So when I put the fuchsias in, I'm looking at them now and they're full colour, and the beautiful thing about them is that they're going to keep their flower right through to the end of the summer, kind of autumn time as well. So they're a real long-lasting flower, but there will also be structure for the container or the border in the winter, because you leave the fuchsia and you don't prune those stems back until late spring really, when the new growth will come from the bottom. So you'll still have a shape even if there's not flower. But now I'm going to plant some perennials, and these will just be in the summer and they'll die right down in the winter. And really I'm thinking about underplanting to give a variety of texture and colour. So one of my absolute favourites is the Foxglove digitalis. They come in the most beautiful colours, so whatever colour scheme, you'll be able to find something you like. You can have white, beautiful peach. I'm choosing the traditional one, which is like a purpley colour. And I'm going to put these in. These are going to get quite tall, so if I put them in, I need to think about what they'll block, so I'm going to put them quite near the back. I'm going to do some underplanting now with a fantastic shade plant called Heuchera. Some people say heuchera. Now these look quite dark, but I just think against this colour fence they're going to be really good. And they come in, again, a variety of colours, and even better, although they're called a perennial, they are evergreen. So the leaves will still be there in the winter, so you'll still have your winter colour. And in the summer they have tiny little flower spikes that are very dainty. I'm going to put two different colours together to give a nice contrast. So the next thing I'm going to plant are geraniums. So these are not the summer bedding geraniums that you have that are bright and love the sunshine. These are perennial geraniums that you can often underplant under shrubs, but amazingly they still have these beautiful flowers. There are quite a few varieties that get really quite big, so if you're planting a container you don't really want to have the larger varieties, but there are some low growing varieties. This one is called Max Fry. There's also a beautiful one called Ballerina, and what I'm trying to create here is a low level of colour as well as height, so I think these will be really beautiful and these will gradually get bigger as well. So we're almost getting to the stage of having finishing touches now. We've got height, we've got evergreen, we've got contrast, but as it's a container I'm going to soften the edges, and this is a foliage plant that grows well in the shade, and if you're lucky in the winter it will survive the winter, and it does have some tiny little purpley blue flowers. So I'm just going to put these in the front of the container. You might find that as your container gets established that you want to just prune it back a little bit, and it will then just keep growing from the middle and keep tumbling over. So like this bit to me looks a little bit limp, so I'm just going to pinch that off. But it will soon grow back and look beautiful. Okay, so now we have got a full structure of plants and a variety of colours, a little bit of a colour theme. The one thing that's missing is a little bit of summer bedding. Now, summer bedding is fantastic because you can find really good flowers. So sometimes if your border in the shade or your container is looking a little bit dull, what I recommend is winter time, use pansies and violas. These ones aren't looking so good because it's now summer, but in the spring, the winter and the autumn they will look fantastic. So even if your container is looking a little bit dull because you've lost your perennials, you can just pop in one or two pansies or violas and it will immediately give you a bit of a zing and brighten it up. So even in the depths of winter you will be able to have the colour. But it's summertime now, and so I've got some summer bedding, and another summer bedding that's really good in the shade are begonias. I'm going to use non-stop begonias and illumination begonias. You can also just get the plain little begonias. They would work. But I'm choosing this orange one just to complement the heuchera there. I'm using a non-stop. That will get quite big and it will flower, and again they really do flower all summer. They go really well. In fact, when a lot of the other summer bedding has gone over, like your petunias, your begonias are looking fantastic. And here's one that's a paler colour, which I think will look really nice against the digitalis, the foxgloves. So I think that will look good. And then I'm going to match it the other side. So don't forget too that you could plant one or two bulbs in the winter that would come up to the snowdrops, and the bluebells would do well in that space. They don't need too much sun either. So you could just pop them up so that in spring you've got something to look forward to. But most importantly about the summer bedding or the winter bedding is I've planted now, and hopefully it looks quite full, but all these things are going to get more full. So I've planted just to fill the gaps, but you might find as time goes on, well I would hope you find as time goes on, that these will all grow and that there won't be much space. So hopefully you'll have a beautiful space and you'll agree that you can still have colour and shape even though it's in the shade. So here are my 3 top tips to think about when you're planting that shady border. 1, how big do you want the plants to be ultimately? Do you need some shape or structure? 2, do you need the plants to be there in the winter? You might find you want to add some evergreen things, even if they're not really flowery, they will still give you something to admire. And my third one is be prepared to embrace the subtle colours as well as the bright ones. You might want to think about the foliage as well as the flowers. And remember that in a shady spot, a pale white or cream is just as important as a bright orange because it draws your eye to that light. So I hope you can find a calm and flowery space to enjoy the shade.